I want my baby home. And I'm asking in the name of Jesus, and I stand on my faith that he's going to bring her home. And we're asking anybody that has any information, I don't care who it is, please come forth, contact the police department. Her life could be in danger.
A mother's desperate pleas for her daughter's return were anchored in faith, begging anyone with information to come forward. The source's identity was entirely irrelevant. She urged the public to contact investigators, fearing the young girl's life was in grave danger. Breaking news today: the man accused of killing 13-year-old Naziah Harris has officially entered a plea of guilty. Jarvis Butts admitted to the murder and 5 additional sexual assaults involving 4 separate underage victims. The girl was last seen exiting her school bus in Detroit during January 2024. Dating her aunt allowed him family access, keeping the child within his lethal, calculated reach. Soon, a 13-year-old vanished, leaving personal items scattered along a river while her remains were never located. By the time Jarvis Butts' true nature was revealed, young Naziah Harris was already a ghost. Naziah Harris was a 13-year-old Detroit resident who was far more than just a name in a headline. She was a vibrant, bright student who loved her education and attended her classes every single day. Harris was a bright presence at Clark Preparatory Academy, described as an observant child who radiated life. Her entire life stretched out before her, full of promise. That Tuesday morning followed a standard pattern of preparation. The girl pulled on her favorite Rugrats jacket, a pink and black coat featuring a soft, faux fur hood. After tightening the laces on her red and white Nikes, she departed for the bus stop. No one would see her alive again. The school bell rang without her, and as evening fell, the family home remained quiet. She had vanished. Panic set in by dawn when her bed remained empty, prompting a police report. There was no history of rebellion or disappearance. The investigation eventually turned toward Jarvis Butts, a man who was far from a stranger to the Harris household. For years, he had operated in the shadows of their domestic life. Shielded by his status as a family partner, that single thread of familial trust granted him the proximity he needed to target the child. It was a calculated betrayal. Authorities would eventually unearth a dark reality of exploitation that far exceeded the family's most haunting fears. For years, he systematically manipulated her through a predatory digital communication, using inappropriate terms of endearment to maintain control. He applied a calculated, rhythmic pressure, mirroring a hunter's patience. His goal was to groom a minor into accepting this trauma as normal. The horror intensified with his criminal record. This was no debut. He was a convicted predator who had already served time for harming a child. This was a practiced routine. Using a mental script for manipulation, he successfully infiltrated a new household to restart his predatory cycle. Cellular data corroborated his presence. On the exact afternoon she disappeared, digital footprints linked him directly to Naziah's last known location. He initially brought her to his workplace garage. After traveling to Ypsilanti, he checked into a motel with a girl just 13 years old. Observe closely, because the following revelation shifted this missing persons case into something far more sinister and weighted with psychological dread. Legal authorities disclosed a harrowing detail. Naziah was pregnant, and Jarvis Butts was the father. The weight of that betrayal is staggering. Detectives theorized that Butts attempted to terminate the pregnancy through amateur, violent means. The situation spiraled into a total medical catastrophe. In the wake of the crisis, he sought no emergency services. Professional medical intervention was never an option he actually considered. He chose a permanent silence. To ensure his secret stayed buried, he took her life and discarded the physical evidence of her existence. Following that motel stay, all sightings of Naziah Harris ceased. She vanished into the shadows of that final, dark night. Forensic clues eventually led search teams to the Rouge River near 7 Mile and Berg Road. There, her personal effects were recovered. A single pink jumpsuit was found, discarded and turned completely inside out. Along the bank lay a dark coat, a solitary shoe, her student identification, and a pair of earphones. The items lay strewn by the water, fragments of a tragedy. The physical state of the site suggested a violent struggle occurred. The riverbank bore the grim markers of Naziah's final moments on this earth. Tracking logs from his own phone verified his return to that very spot the following night. He stood by the water alone. A youthful relative of the victim approached authorities, claiming to have witnessed Butts physically assault the girl in the past. This witness account, fused with DNA found on her garments and his electronic movements, created an inescapable link to the suspect. The evidence left no room for doubt. Detroit officials took Jarvis Butts into custody, filing charges for intentional, premeditated homicide. As the inquiry delved further into his background, detectives unearthed details about his history that were significantly more disturbing. The legal reckoning he faced extended far beyond the atrocities committed against Nazia. He faced further charges for a pattern of predatory misconduct involving 5 more young victims. The youngest was just 4 years old. 4. For years, he roamed through neighborhoods, masking his predation with family ties, while shattering young lives. Nazia Harris was not his first victim. She was simply the one he chose to silence forever. Detroit authorities did not hesitate. The moment she was reported missing, the gears of justice turned. A massive citywide search commenced, with detectives canvassing streets, analyzing digital trails, and questioning every resident. The investigation took a grim turn when a jacket, a shoe, and her school ID were found near the river. The operation immediately shifted focus toward an exhaustive and meticulous search of the murky water. Reporters moved to the west side, where officials prepared an update on the disappearance of Nazia Harris. Are we live? The official began by thanking the homicide and missing persons units for their relentless investigative efforts. He also credited the regional dive teams and joint strike forces for their assistance in the search. The primary mission remained finding closure for the family by locating the missing child's whereabouts. That objective is what drove the massive mobilization of law enforcement resources that day. Recounting the timeline, he noted she was last seen January 9th, near 3 Mile Drive in Cornwall. By January 10th, her family had formally reported her missing to the school district's police force. On February 12th, the lead investigator assumed full control of the case after meeting with school officials. By February 13th, the investigation intensified, focusing on this specific area based on critical forensic intelligence they had gathered. Journalists questioned the logistical coordination required for such a massive multi-agency recovery operation. He confirmed that local, state, and federal partners were working in tandem with specialized dive units. The Detroit Police Department's internal dive unit was also fully engaged in the underwater search. Oakland and Wayne County Sheriff units provided critical support in a significant display of interagency cooperation. While aiming for closure, observers noted this was the third body of water searched by authorities. They inquired about the specific tip that led investigators to prioritize this particular section of river. Questions also focused on whether the mission had officially become a recovery of human remains. The official admitted they were constantly processing a high volume of incoming leads. Information came from public reward programs and through the interrogation of various suspects in custody. He explained that certain intelligence made this location a priority that needed to be cleared immediately. As time passed, he acknowledged the mission was increasingly looking like a search for a body. The department understood the tragic way these cases often ended, despite their hopes for a miracle. Though he withheld sensitive details, he admitted that undisclosed facts created grave concerns about the outcome. He pleaded with the public for any information regarding her whereabouts or any recent sightings. Reporters asked if the department had officially identified a person of interest in the girl's disappearance. He responded that several individuals were currently under investigation and being interviewed by detectives. Though not yet labeled suspects, he expressed concern regarding what these individuals might know. Investigators planned to thoroughly re-examine their statements and verify her last known associations. The search remained an active and ongoing priority for the entire department. Homicide and missing persons detectives had been working around the clock without rest on the case. The investigation involved many moving parts and a massive amount of logistical coordination. A mountain of evidence required analysis before they could determine her location and identify the culprit. Divers were seen emerging from the water as the press conference continued in the background. He confirmed that the search of the river would continue for several more hours. The methodology used by the recovery teams was described as a highly technical process. They partitioned the river into a grid, systematically clearing each segment to rule out her presence. The press asked about the specific environmental hazards and challenges encountered in the riverbed. He admitted the search teams faced significant obstacles within the murky depths. Fortunately, the weather held, sparing the crew from battling ice at the surface levels. However, the team encountered physical obstructions, navigating through dense timber blockages in the water. One can only imagine the difficulty of searching through such murky, debris-choked conditions. These are seasoned experts, executing the specialized maneuvers they have spent years perfecting. Every inch will be checked, regardless of the hurdles, with updates provided as facts emerge. Authorities remain guarded about the specific intelligence that shifted the focus to Clinton Township. Questions persist regarding the timeline and whether this breakthrough stems from recently acquired data. The delay in action leaves many wondering why this site became critical just this week. Criminal probes are complex, where the arrival of fresh details dictates the investigation's rhythm. Timing depends on evolving needs, creating a fluid process that governs the search's trajectory. Detailing the inner workings is unnecessary, but officials emphasize this area's paramount significance. The moment to act is now, and the search will persist until she has recovered. The briefing concluded in heavy silence. While divers searched the depths, police combed the banks, finding only remnants of her life. Simultaneously, a digital net tightened as unyielding cellular records began to tell a story. Data tracked Butts and Nausea through Detroit and Ypsilanti before placing him at the river. His signal flared at the exact spot where the current later surrendered her belongings. Forensic teams recovered biological signatures from her clothing, creating an irrevocable link to Butts. A relative's testimony of the initial assault added human context to the scientific evidence. As detectives scrutinized his past, they unraveled a history of hidden, predatory patterns. 5 more children emerged as survivors of his depravity while the evidence converged on him. The weight of the incriminating case against Jarvis Butts was mounting with undeniable speed. Yet, the central void remained. Nausea was missing, a fact that haunted the entire investigation. Without her recovery, the family remained trapped in a space between hope and grief. There was no grave, only a missing person file that confirmed a truth everyone feared. Legal proof remained elusive until Butts was finally indicted for calculated first-degree murder. The charge alleged a cold-blooded efficiency, a deliberate decision followed by a lethal execution. He further faced multiple charges for aggravated sexual misconduct uncovered during the probe. These crimes extended beyond the trauma of Nausea. 5 additional victims were identified, the youngest being a child of merely 4 years. A chilling history characterized his actions while the family awaited justice in the courts. Searchers circulated flyers for 13-year-old Nausea Harris, the girl at the center of the hunt. Her grandmother, Annette, stood with law enforcement that afternoon to address the community's concerns. With a voice of conviction, she anchored her desperate hope in a spiritual plea. Drone 4 provided aerial views of the operation. Police fanned out across Shoemaker and Garland, looking for the 5-foot 2-inch teenager. Records show the student vanished after leaving Joseph E. Clark Prep Academy on January 9th. She was last seen near Cornwall and 3 Mile Avenue, miles from the current scene. Canine units and officers conducted grid searches, debriefing on several critical investigative factors. While hopeful, officials stressed the operation is fueled by rigorous data rather than simple sentiment. This singular mission drove every movement currently taking place within the search perimeter. The deployment mirrors the efficiency that led the FBI to Winter Nicole Smith last year. Detectives confirmed that similar intelligence profiles prompted the current tactical efforts in this area. Over 30 days later, Annette Harris understands the dark implications of this massive mobilization. Authorities urge anyone with information to come forward. Investigators are urging anyone with pertinent details to break their silence and contact the police immediately. With her safety hanging in the balance and the evidence mounting, Jarvis Butts finally faced his reckoning. He admitted guilt to second-degree murder alongside 5 counts of predatory sexual violence. In exchange for his confession, he received a sentence spanning 35 to 60 years. He finally disclosed the location of the remains, discarded near the Rouge River at 7 Mile. This grim revelation pointed toward the exact perimeter that search teams had been scouring for days. Prosecutor Kim Worthy hoped disclosure would finally allow the family to bring Nausea home. During the sentencing, the family stood to deliver a haunting account of their psychological devastation. One can barely fathom the inner strength required to confront the predator who destroyed their family. They struggled to articulate the depths of their grief, yet their presence spoke volumes in court. Anita Harris stepped toward the microphone, her voice steadying as she prepared her formal statement. She addressed the honorable judge with a heavy heart, her gaze fixed on the bench. Standing in the solemn quiet of the Wayne County courtroom, she began her address. She thanked the court for this opportunity to detail the wreckage left in the defendant's wake. More than 2 years had passed since the nightmare of the initial missing persons report. She emphasized that the fundamental essence of her life had been irrevocably shattered. The family's world had been permanently altered by the absence of their beloved Mia. Each new dawn serves as a painful reminder of the daughter who is no longer there. She wakes up enveloped in a profound depression, facing another day defined by a void. Her love for the victim remains a deep, aching constant in her daily existence. Language falls short when attempting to describe the immense affection they still hold for her. The trauma has been paralyzing, often making the simple act of waking up feel insurmountable. She finds herself withdrawing from the world, unable to engage with anyone through the grief. Basic daily functions have become a struggle as she navigates the psychological fallout of this crime. There are mornings when the weight of the depression makes it impossible to leave her bed. The ongoing stress has taken a physical toll, severely impacting her overall health and well-being. She is currently under the care of multiple physicians while facing relentless harassment on social media. Aggressors have been photographing her residence and leaking her private contact information to the public. The family has endured stalking and direct threats, living under a constant shadow of fear. Unauthorized digital fundraisers have been launched in Nazia's name without the family's consent or knowledge. The tragedy has not only broken their hearts, but also pushed them toward financial ruin. The witness paused, her voice trailing off as the emotion of the moment took hold. The judge offered a moment of grace, encouraging her to take all the time she needed. A heavy silence filled the room as the court awaited any further testimony from the gallery. The final judgment was rendered 35 to 60 years for the defendant's 6 separate criminal cases. Butts entered guilty pleas for every charge, each carrying its own specific negotiated term of imprisonment. The court noted that the sheer depravity of these crimes placed them among the most serious offenses. His history of violence is extensive, with a criminal record stretching back to 1997. He is a career offender, previously imprisoned for sexual assault following a conviction in 2005. Despite his 2012 release, he returned to his predatory habits almost the moment he walked free. The judge then addressed Butts directly, her tone echoing the gravity of his horrific actions. She hoped he had truly absorbed the testimonies regarding the irreparable damage he caused so many. He would now have decades in a cell to contemplate the monstrous path he had chosen. While the law is blind, it eventually delivers a heavy hand to those who seek victims. These 6 complex cases finally reached their conclusion, closing a dark chapter in the county's history. Both legal teams devoted extensive hours to these 6 resolutions. Their hard work is deeply appreciated. I recognize the court can never truly restore what was stolen from these victims. I hope this lengthy imprisonment offers the finality needed for the families to begin healing. I will address each case individually. Mr. Butts, starting with File 2500218001FH, regarding the murder of Nazia Harris. 35 to 60 years, you are barred from all contact with the victim's family, digital or otherwise. This is absolute. No third-party or social media contact. Meanwhile, search teams returned to the riverbank. They scoured the area using every coordinate and chilling detail from his confession. Nazia was missing. Her body remained hidden, and the narrative took a final, dark turn. Scarcely 2 weeks had passed since the sentencing. Jarvis Butts was found dead in his cell at the Edgeler Reception Center. Staff couldn't revive him. He was gone. The state police immediately opened an investigation into the suspected suicide. To Nazia's family, this self-inflicted end was nothing more than an act of cowardice. They still crave the truth of her location because those answers remain elusive. Their only wish is to lay her to rest with a proper burial. His sudden decision to end his life left many agonizing questions completely unanswered. Exactly 14 days after the verdict, he chose to finalize his own fate. It was a cowardly exit, avoiding the very life behind bars he had earned. This man exploited family ties to groom a child before taking her life. Ultimately, he could not face the decades of confinement, so he ended it on his own terms. He took his secrets to the grave, including the location of Nazia's remains. Any hope for the family to find total closure vanished in that cell. They remain in limbo, waiting for the day they can finally bring her home. Without a grave, there is only a wound that the killer ensured would never heal. Nazia Harris was 13, a student who cherished her school days and her favorite coat. A man within her own family circle used that closeness to destroy her. This case proves that the predator is not always a stranger at the door. Sometimes the threat is at the dinner table, grooming a child while everyone is oblivious. Contact the Detroit police if you have any information regarding her remains. She deserves to come home. Share your thoughts on this conclusion in the comments. Did justice find him, Or did he rob the family of true accountability? Rest in peace, Nazia. Your name will not be forgotten. If this investigation moved you, please like the video to support the channel, subscribe to follow more cases, and share Nazia's story so the search continues. We want to hear your perspective in the comments below. We read every post. We will see you in the next deep dive. The Echoes of Silence, a lesson in justice and humanity. Shadows don't just hide secrets, they bury lives. In the hushed hallways of forgotten precincts and the desolate stretches of midnight highways, a haunting truth remains. Silence is the greatest accomplice of all. Every grainy photograph, every dust-covered evidence bag, and every flickering neon light in this journey represents more than just a case. They represent a chair left empty at a dinner table, a voice stolen too soon, and a story frozen in time. We often look at the faceless subjects of tragedy and see only a mystery to be solved. But look closer. In the cold, desaturated tones of a cold case, we find a profound lesson in human empathy. Justice is not a concept that expires with the ticking of a clock or the turning of a calendar. It is a sacred promise we make to one another that no life is too small to be remembered, and no darkness is too deep to be pierced by the light of the truth. When we refuse to look away from the shadows, we honor the dignity of the lost. Let this be our vow, to keep searching, to keep questioning, and to never let the echoes of the missing fade into the wind. Because until the truth is told, the story isn't over. Justice isn't just about the law, it's about the heart.